Let's think back, way back, almost 4 billion years ago. Our planet, well, it was a totally different place.
Oh, absolutely unrecognizable. A real crucible of elements and intense energy.
And the huge question we're tackling in this deep dive is, how did life actually start? How did it emerge from, that seemingly harsh environment?
Right. How did non-living matter somehow organize itself into the first self-replicating systems? That's the core mystery.
We're going to look at the science behind it, the chemical building blocks, the conditions on early Earth.
It's a journey back to the very beginning.
Okay, so picture this early Earth. Constant bombardment from space, volcanic chaos.
And an atmosphere completely unlike ours, thick with methane, ammonia, hydrogen, water vapor.
But critically, no free oxygen, right? The stuff we breathe today just wasn't around in the same way.
Exactly. That absence of oxygen is key. It created a chemically reducing environment, which is actually quite favorable for certain types of chemical reactions needed to build complex molecules.
So this sets the stage for the primordial soup idea. What exactly is that?
Well, it's the theory that life originated in a body of water. Maybe the early oceans, maybe shallow pools that became enriched with organic compounds.
Like a nutrient broth, almost.
Sort of, yeah. A chemical mixture where these building blocks could accumulate and interact.
And we have some actual experimental evidence for this, don't we? The Miller-Urey experiment.
Ah, yes, the classic experiment from the 1950s. Stanley Miller and Harold Urey. Really foundational work.
What do they actually do? They tried to recreate early Earth in a flask.
Pretty much. They set up a closed system. They had water mimicking the ocean and then a gas mixture above it.
The methane, ammonia, hydrogen you mentioned?
Precisely. Simulating that early atmosphere. And crucially, they added an energy source.
Like lightning.
Exactly. They used electrical sparks zapping through the gases.
And what happened? Did anything interesting form?
That's the amazing part. Within just a week, they analyzed the water and they found amino acids.
Amino acids, the building blocks of proteins.
Yes. Things like glycine, alanine, several fundamental types. It was a huge breakthrough.
Because it showed that you could get these essential organic molecules from simple inorganic precursors, just using the likely conditions of early Earth.
It demonstrated a plausible pathway. It wasn't proof life did form that way, but it showed it could have started with chemistry we understand.
Okay, so amino acids make proteins, which are vital, but life needs more, right?
Yeah.
Like how information gets passed on.
Right. You need nucleic acids, RNA, and DNA, the information molecules.
So did similar experiments show how their building blocks could form too?
Yes. Subsequent research, building on Miller-Urey, explored variations, and they found that other crucial biomolecules could indeed form under similar plausible early Earth conditions.
Like what else?
Well, simple compounds like formaldehyde and cyanocetylene popped up in these simulations, and these are important because they act as intermediates.
Intermediates, meaning they react further to form more complex things.
Exactly. They're stepping stones towards making things like sugars and also the nitrogenous bases.
The bases. Adenine, guanine, cytosine. The letters of the genetic code.
Right. And uracil, too, which is important for RNA. Thymine and DNA comes a bit later, so you start seeing pathways to the components of nucleic acids.
Okay, let's break that down. You need a sugar, a base, and a phosphate group to make a nucleotide, correct?
That's the structure, yes. Sugar plus base gives you a nucleoside. Add the phosphate, and you have a nucleotide.
And these nucleotides are like the individual beads on a string.
A good analogy. They link together, forming these long chains, the nucleic acids, RNA, and DNA.
And those molecules hold the genetic information and, crucially, can replicate themselves.
That self-replication capability is absolutely central. It's what allows information to be copied and passed down, which is fundamental to life and evolution.
Of course, none of this chemistry happens spontaneously. It needs energy. We mentioned lightning.
Yes, simulated by the sparks in Miller-Urey. But early Earth had other major energy sources.
Volcanoes.
Huge amounts of volcanic activity, releasing heat, chemicals, and also, think about the sun.
Intense sunlight.
Extremely intense ultraviolet radiation, much stronger than today because there wasn't a protective ozone layer yet. That UV energy could have powered many chemical reactions.
Okay, so we've got energy, we've got the basic building blocks, amino acids, nucleotides. How do they link up into the long chains, the polymers like proteins and nucleic acids?
That's polymerization, and it's another significant hurdle. Simply having the building blocks floating around in a dilute soup isn't enough.
You need them to concentrate somehow and then link up.
Exactly. One idea is that mineral surfaces could have played a role. Clay minerals, for instance.
How would that work?
Well, clays have charged surfaces that can attract and concentrate these organic molecules. They might have acted like templates, lining up the building blocks, and maybe even catalyzing the reactions that link them together.
Catalyzing meaning speeding up the reactions.
Yes, helping the polymerization process happen much more efficiently than it would just in open water. Maybe certain metal ions dissolved in the water help too.
So we go from simple molecules to polymers. What's next? The first cell.
That's arguably the most critical transition. Getting those self-replicating molecules, like perhaps RNA first, enclosed within some kind of boundary, a membrane.
Creating a little self-contained unit.
Precisely. Separating an internal environment from the outside world. This allows for more controlled chemistry, a distinct internal metabolism to develop.
And what could have formed those first membranes?
Lipids are the prime candidates. They're fatty molecules that, fascinatingly, can spontaneously self-assemble into hollow spheres called vesicles when they're in water.
Like tiny bubbles.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's plausible that these lipid vesicles could have trapped some of those early self-replicating molecules inside.
Creating a sort of proto-cell.
A primordial cell, exactly. A simple replicating system enclosed within a membrane. That's a huge step towards life as we know it.
And these first cells, given the atmosphere, they wouldn't have used oxygen right.
Almost certainly not. They would have been anaerobic.
Meaning they got energy without oxygen.
Yes, probably through simpler metabolic pathways, maybe breaking down the organic molecules available in that primordial soup, or using chemical energy from volcanic vents, for example. Anaerobic metabolism is ancient.
We still see it today in many microbes.
Absolutely. It's a window into life's earliest biochemistry.
This whole process, it just sounds incredibly slow. We're talking vast amounts of time.
Oh, immense timescales. Not days or years, but likely hundreds of millions of years for these steps to unfold. It wasn't a single event, but a gradual process of increasing chemical complexity.
Do we have any direct evidence from that long ago, from the rocks?
It's challenging because the evidence is so old and often altered by geology. But yes, there are clues.
Like fossils.
Microscopic fossils, potentially. There are structures found in ancient rocks, billions of years old, that look like fossilized microbes. Interpreting them is difficult, but they're suggestive.
And chemical signatures, too.
Right. The ratio of different carbon isotopes in ancient rocks can sometimes indicate biological activity, suggesting life was processing carbon very early on.
So putting it all together, we start with a young, oxygen-poor Earth. Lots of energy.
Simple inorganic molecules react, forming organic building blocks, amino acids, sugars, bases.
Driven by lightning, UV, volcanic heat. Then these blocks polymerize, maybe on mineral surfaces.
Forming proteins and, crucially, self-replicating nucleic acids like RNA.
And eventually these get enclosed in lipid membranes.
Creating the first simple anaerobic cells, the ancestors of everything alive today.
It's an incredible story pieced together from chemistry, geology, biology, unfolding over eons.
It really is, and it naturally leads you to wonder.
Could it happen elsewhere? If the conditions are right on another planet, could this whole process of abiogenesis start again?
That's the profound question, isn't it? Are the chemical steps that led to life here universal? We don't know yet, but it's perhaps the biggest driver for exploring worlds beyond our own.